this is Alejandro Bratti from Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business, and welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Single TV channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Single TV app on the respective app stores on iOS or Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free and is available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Roku, and all smart TVs. Today, I am really excited that we are going to have for the second time Soo Young. So this is really great to have you here with us today, Soo Young. How are you?
I'm well. I am a little sleepy. It's part of being a solopreneur, but other than that, I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am going to like I have this sty in my eye that I know that not everybody can see. Today it's much better. Yesterday was like I was a boxer
Oh
or something
no.
like that. But today I am much better. But I'm happy to be here today. I know that every time that we have a discussion, we always start to flow in a lot of good things. So anybody that is hearing to this conversation, if you are in any social media, please send a comment. It's going to be great to hear from you. If you have any questions, anything that you want to talk about, we are going to go deep in this area. So let's start with you. I know that some people know you because of the past, but if you want to give a quick summary of where are you coming and what are you doing, will be great.
Yeah, so I have two businesses. One is Multiverse Consulting, and that's kind of the umbrella business. Right now, I'm really focused on what I've called the unschooling for creators.
Mm.
And what it is it's helping creators, people in the digital economy, actually build their plan A business using kind of quantum tools that I apply to personal development. So I'm a educator, I'm a coach, consultant, I'm a writer, mother, dancer, all of the above. But I think that's what the creator economy is about. It's about embracing all the areas of your passions, your expertise and interests, especially as a polymath. And I was wondering if you've heard that term before, Alejandro, polymath.
Polymath, no. That was exactly the question that I was going to ask you. What is
So it's this beautiful new term for people who have multiple professional expertise areas as
that?
well as multiple passion, you know, in their life. So before, I mean, when I was growing up, especially in Korean culture, it was like you pick one thing and you're just really good at it and you do it even if you don't want to do it anymore. But polymath actually, they embrace multiple disciplines, they embrace multiple like professional circles, and in the digital economy being able to merge them all into one business, it's really an asset, it's not a detriment. So
Mm.
yeah, that I love that, because now I finally have a word for what I am. That's not a negative word.
That's awesome. And I know that we talked a lot about last time about the multiverse,
Yeah.
but I am also like really fascinated with that because that's part of like all the Marvel movies are using that a lot.
Right.
There is a lot of curiosity on that. It's like, okay, is that a movie or that is something real? How you can play with that? So let's talk a little bit from there, and then we start to talk about like, okay, risks because that's something that I am also passionate about. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's funny when people come across my profile and they're like, "Oh, you're a multiverse consultant," and they're like, "Do you love the Marvel movies?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, they use that." I mean, it's like I forget because that's not where the roots are. So the multiverse theory, and I'm certainly not an expert on it. I just took pieces of it to apply to personal development. So the idea that I use is every choice we make, whether it's big or small, you come to a fork in the road, right? And in that fork, you have two ways you can go. One is towards your personality or identity, right? And that's part of your past. The other is towards your potential.
mm,
Most people don't want to go towards their potential, even if they say they want to, because it's the complete unknown, it's the void, right?
mm,
So, what happens is when you make a choice towards what's familiar, We've been already our neurological connections program us in that direction, right? We're going to do the same things. Nothing can change. So it's like, if you imagine, I'm going to keep doing the same things for the next 5 years, while your life will be exactly the same,
Mm,
or maybe even worse. If you go towards your potential, you have no idea what can happen, but that potential is risk. It's heartfelt risk. It's the unknown. It's growth and evolution. And each time you make that choice, all these other garden or forking paths come from that one choice,
mm,
right? So that sounds really vague, but let me give you an example. So
mm,
let's say that I'm naturally someone who's an educator and a teacher. Let's say I go somewhere and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take on the role that I usually know. I'm going to get up there and want to talk to people. But that's actually my personality. That's my identity. Maybe in that moment, I actually need to be like, I'm a beginner. I just want to learn. I'm going to be more quiet. And that's my potential. So, even a positive aspect of your personality, it can lead to you not evolving. So, let me go backtrack a little bit. Another part of the multiverse theory that I use is something called quantum jumping or quantum meditation.
mm.
It's allowing yourself to get into a meditative state and then asking yourself the problem that you're dealing with. And then knowing that in some multiverse, some world, there's a version of you that's actually figured out that problem.
Mm.
So I'll give you another example. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, how can I like use another platform to create courses? And I'll go into my meditative state. And then I walk through the store and there's me, a version of me. And she's like, oh, she's using Substack as a way to put out her courses in a simple way. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. And then I bring that back into this waking state. I take the information that I have from the Soo Young that solved it, and then I take action as if that is me. And so when I do that, you compress the the verses, you compress all the worlds, and you make it here and now by actually applying that very thing. So
So,
that's
in regards of this, because I know that right now it's very common to talk about meditation,
mhm,
but also it's common that people is okay. That is really difficult. Like, okay, I love trying to do meditation, but it's better to have something guided because like
yeah,
my mind is always flowing and thinking about a million of things that I have to do. So in
absolutely.
regards of that, what is your recommendation? Because it seems really good what you are saying, but what happens if my mind is always thinking and bringing ideas and I can stop it to start to think like, okay, now move to another universe and start to create another solution. Yeah, that sounds like a Marvel movie because I am here trying to figure it out with my mind, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I love your questions because they're so real, right? This is really what we deal with. So, I used to practice Tibetan Buddhist meditation, but it's not something I'm able to incorporate in my everyday life. What's great about the quantum jumping, and there's a lot of people who have YouTube videos, so you can use them to kind of get you started. Burt Goldman is one of my favorite, Burt Goldman. So, what I love about it is you're actually using your mind. It's not to turn off the mind. It's
Mm,
not trying to get to nothingness, which is so hard in this world, right? It's actually you start and you just his voice is so great. He's just like, relax, relax. And he just counts. It's so simple. He gives you a counting, he gives you an image, he gives you a doorway. And the whole time, what I do is not necessarily what he suggests every time. I start with what am I struggling with right now? What do I want answers to right now? And then I relax. And then it kind of unfolds as a picture, you know, of what there's nothing else. It's like watching a movie of yourself. So I feel like there's a lot less resistance in a meditation that allows you to deal with the problem you have, right? Usually that problem is like making you crazy. So you need to relax. But what if you hold that nugget and you're like, okay, I'm going in with this little pearl and let's see what unfolds. And so, what I do for my clients is when I work with them, I actually create quantum jumping meditations for them, whatever they're struggling with, when they're building their business. A lot of it is like facing very old fears that kind of come up as they go into the unknown. So it's guided. It's not about enlightenment. It's just about we are born as problem solvers. You know, our brain is hardwired to solve problems. We get our dopamine hit, we get our endorphins, and it actually has allowed us to evolve and survive. So it's a way to actually use that tool to our benefit, right? Rather than letting our mind create problems everywhere because we're stressed. So it's a different way of meditating that I think is easier for most people.
Yeah, and that's really good. So let's start to talk about now with you when you are doing it for a customer, a client, somebody that you
Mm-hmm.
want to help. How you start to think about like okay the possibilities and start to guide them to think about the area that they don't feel like common ground, and this is what I tend to do.
Mm-hmm.
Start to evaluate the options and the possibilities there.
Yeah. So with the unschooling for creators, right? I'm helping people who are like, I have these business skills, I have these passions, but I no longer want to do this for other people. I don't want to only build other people's business. But the problem is, it's like, where the heck do I start?
Mm,
Right? It's very hard to know, well, I love this, I love that. What should I do? I start with a problem. So that's why the multiverse, the different tools are so important. So I have them think about their problem. So the problems could be anything like, well, when I show up online, I'm really afraid that I'm going to be rejected,
mm,
because we're using social media as one of our tools for spreading our message. And then that kind of permeates through other parts of their life, right? So the multiverse for that client would be talking about, you know, going down, going deeper, but how can you show up more authentically
mm,
in your life, in your business, in your relationships? And then just that framework alone of like taking them there, letting them be in that space of the imaginary multiverse, right? Where they're actually seeing themselves or they're feeling themselves, or sometimes people get verbal messages, actually doing the life they want, then it's incredible. Like I can actually see how their content changes. I'm getting goosebumps. Their content changes, their videos change, their podcasts change because all of a sudden they're not paralyzed by this very old trauma. Like, oh, if you show up, no one's going to be your friend. If you're real, they're going to make fun of you.
mm.
So it's specific to each client's challenge. And we all have like maybe three core challenges that kind of stop us, from going forward. So that's a big tool for me helping them work past that. But what's interesting is as they figure out their own problems, they create tools for themselves. So I'm not just giving them my tools. It's so that they look at what helped you get out of that mode. Then as they write about figuring out that problem, that tool, whatever they create, becomes their product.
Mm,
That's what they offer to service to other people because whatever problems you have or I have, they're actually universal problems, just individualized, right? There's going to be millions of other people with that same problem. Well, those people are your audience. They're going to resonate with you being honest. Oh, I'm really struggling with showing up. And then they'll be like, oh, yeah, me too. I had that since I was a kid. Then you have this audience who's connected to you and you converse and you figure out what they want, how they've been helped, how you can help them. And then you have your possible client. So it's this very natural way of figuring out how to use your problem solving for your betterment, but also the betterment for the world, actually.
So you have your problem, and a lot of times people focus so much in the problem that they forget about the possibilities, and they don't see how you can manage other options. All or inside of the coaching, they start to talk about like so much about their problem, and suddenly they're in the same mood of oh, I am so depressed right now after I speak. Like I lived again the whole process
Yeah.
of my problem.
Yeah.
What are the things, okay, or maybe an example how you start to help them, like, okay, that's great, you know exactly what is your problem, you're living there for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Let's start to talk about the possibilities. Let's start to talk about the options. And really what I'm doing is giving options to the people that are listening, like, okay, this way you can start to open the eyes. That's why coaching is so powerful, because you can do
Yes.
this type of things.
So, I was talking to someone else about this, right? We have like the therapeutic clinical model, then we have the coaching model. Both are very important, but used in
Very
tandem.
different.
Yes, like it's like thank goodness that we have both resources. But the difference between coaching that I see is that it's more about taking action, right? It's usually someone hires you to say, well, I want to write a book, or, I want to feel like mentally ready to take this trip by myself. So it's really based on more of like the cognitive behavioral approach towards like psychology and processing. The problem with just staying in therapy, I find, is that we can get what you're talking about. We're just so lost in the processing, going backwards, projecting forwards, that our autonomic nervous system is actually being re traumatized over and over again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what's beautiful about, like, let's say you decide you have a project, whatever it can be, it doesn't have to be the kind of business that my creators are doing, but when you actually hone in on an external goal, right, then you actually get to process and put application, process and put application. Because I think that part of our brain that wants to problem solve, it needs to see the change.
Mhm.
So, like, let's say people who are like, I'm really struggling in relationships, and they watch all these videos, they take all these courses, they have a coach, but then if they do not put it into actual action, then depression can set in because it's like the tools are just kind of on the outside of the body, right?
Yes.
They need to be absorbed and used. So, what's amazing about people who have this agreement with me and they say, I want to become a creator, I want to build a business using the digital economy with your system. So the agreement is like, I'm going to call you on your stuff. This is a safe space. You can call me on my stuff, but this is really about getting to this goal of building your business. Well, just as we're building that business, Alejandro, it's like we are processing. We are processing big time because you don't have to look for what's stopping you when you're moving forward. When you're moving forward, there's going to be a roadblock
Mm.
because the only way you can deal with facing the unknown, choosing for yourself, is to allow that stuff to surface, is to allow the inner challenge to surface.
Mm.
So each time the inner challenge surfaces and we work on it together, I give them my tools, I give them a sense of support and encouragement. They get to see it in real time through the content and the engagement, actually their transformation. And so I feel like there's something powerful when you direct your process and change towards some outer goal, because you can get this immediate sense of, oh, this is working, or this isn't working. Let me try something else. So I think having the focus of let's build a business together, or let's get you to start dating again, you know, it hones everything in. Yeah.
And I, with everything that you are saying, what comes to my mind is something that I always say, like, everything is created twice. First in your mind, and then you can see it in front of you.
Yes.
And everything that you are talking about is like, okay, when you start to explore the possibilities, when you start to take risks in your head, because you are not taking it in front of you yet,
Right.
you start to open the doors to a new world, that you can start to create new things.
Yeah.
And if you start to live there and you start to like it, suddenly you start to create something new that is different from what I have been doing the last 10 years, you know? Uh, so that's where I start to connect like this idea that you are bringing today about, okay, when was the last time that you took a risk? It's like, okay, I don't remember. I am so used to be doing the same things every single day that I would like to, but I am afraid.
Yes.
What tools do you recommend for people? I know that one of the tools is having a coaching call to start to help you think differently. But does do you have some tools that people can start to look to start to see? Oh yes, I am not a risk taker. I don't know why I stopped being that because I was really a risk taker when I was in my 20s. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point because it's like we can remember parts of our life, right, when we were natural risk takers, or I would say that gap when like children say, "I'm going to build a robot." Guess what? In 2 seconds, they're gathering materials to do it. There's no, flux of time. There's no analysis. There's no second guessing. So one thing that's a kind of an easy tool is to have a picture of yourself as a child,
Mm,
and just kind of have that where you can see it all the time to be a reminder like, oh, yeah, I was like that. There was a time that my instinct, my hunches took me to where I wanted to be. And I was an explorer, right?
mm,
So that's to me, I have a picture, of myself as like I think I'm 1 years old and I have these big eyes and just, you can see like this curiosity and fierceness. The other is, so the way I believe the way we do one thing is the way we do many things, right? So start taking really small risks, whatever they are. I mean, like it's silly, but I like talk to my gym crush. I have this crush at the gym, and I was like, you know what? I'm so tired of like feeling restricted by whatever I think might happen. So I just one day very nervously went over and was like, "Hi, my name's Soo Young. What's yours?" And I just came off super dorky. But what was incredible was that momentum of like just doing that in this area of just like a crush, I was able to take 2 business risks that week and they led to phenomenal results.
mm,
So allowing yourself to do these in little ways, right? Like I have this exercise for my clients that I'll say, okay, close your eyes and imagine you're at this amazing restaurant everyone's been raving about. How do you order your food? And from that, I can see like how they do not choose for what they feel that they deserve. Maybe they'll go for something that they don't want because the person next to them wants to share. It just says so much. But what I'm saying is, we can see how we choose. It allows kind of our inner witness, our inner avatar, to know how are we going to operate in the world. So even if going to a restaurant and being like, I want something different today, start
mm,
there,
mm,
or talk to someone you've been thinking about at work. Just send them a message. So little steps actually prime your brain, right? It lets it know that you can do this and you can keep doing this. So it kind of flows out from there. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to start my business right now. That's for some people, but it
yeah.
can just be that little, or wearing something you want to wear. Like it's been sitting in your closet. You're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, I want to wear it, but I don't. Just wear it. Just wear it. And then see how that feels and let that in and let that kind of feeling kind of flow into other areas of your life to take risks.
No, and I love what you are saying because yes, at the end, like doing those little things, something that we talk in the neuroencoding that is really important
Yeah.
is you do that little thing, and after that you say like, "Oh, amazing, you did it,"
Yeah.
and just by having that, like, okay, excitement that you are doing something different, start to teach to your subconscious like, okay, I don't know what is happening here, but I like it. So that's what I am here with what you are saying is like start to do things that takes you out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone, and it's like, okay, I have a path that I already know to get and pick up my kids. Okay, change it,
Right.
changes. They start to do something different, and suddenly you are going to start to see, oh, I didn't know that I have these places around my house. Like something that can start to change. So I am connecting with that idea also, just to for anybody that it's like exactly in that position. Like, okay, I am so tired and bored with my life. Okay, I start to do little changes that can start to
Absolutely.
create something and activate your creativity.
Yeah, and I think like something like that is so easy, right? But we don't because we're those super highways are so familiar. Oh, I go right here, I go left there, whatever. But I think like the practice, it's like whenever you're doing a new habit, right? Let's say someone wants to start working out. We actually have to schedule. It's really the only way we can start. We have to schedule. So I have this thing. I can really get in the zone and get do my work and do the usual thing, play dates on these days. Every week I try to do something new.
Mm.
Every week. So one externally, one internally. So the external thing is even if it's going to a new restaurant, checking out a new cafe, putting on an outfit that I bought but I haven't worn. That's the external risk. The internal risk is I try to take on an idea, a mindset that I've never really entertained. It could be, spiral dynamics, a psychological framework. It could be, this philosophy of emergence where you take two disparate things and it creates this magical new thing that's two very different from the two. So I think it's important to do both to kind of open up this internal psyche with risk as well as take the physical actions with risk. Those two together, it's very transformational of like how you start feeling in your life and kind of feeling in your own mind.
And just for anybody that is hearing, because sometimes not everybody is a feeling person.
Yes.
And I know that you're talking a lot about that. That means that maybe you are a very feeling person, and that's
Yes.
okay. But even if you are in another world thinking like, okay, I like to see because I can see everything, and I am that like that also. Like when somebody is telling me something, any story, I start to imagine all the everything that they are saying, and I have the whole picture. So I start to imagine instead of if you are hearing from what Soo Young is saying, it's like, okay, instead of feeling, I start to say I am imagining,
Yeah.
or move to the hearing. I am what I'm listening, and that's what I am listening. And there is other people that is also everything is about what they are listening.
Right.
So that's very important to notice. Not everyone is one or the other, or you can have the three of them, and that's fine also.
Right.
But right now, it's like if you, I can feel, so this doesn't work. I'm sorry, Alejandro and so young, but I don't feel anything, so I am sorry. No, maybe you have another way of feeling that can be with your visual or with your ear, or different, or taste it. I don't know. It can
Yes.
be something different. But at the end, when you connect everything that is happening with some of these senses that we have, you are going to have a fuller experience. It's not going to be an experience only of thinking that I want to have this, but I don't know exactly what is it.
Yeah.
Start to feel it, see it, hear it, taste it. I don't know. I heard from what you were saying, you plan to do something at least at an internal and external risk every week. How do you plan that? Do you plan it like on Sunday, or you plan it like, okay, someday on this week I am going to do it? How you start to develop this little skills, or plan it at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day? When is the time that for you is, oh, I haven't done it and I am on Saturday, I have to do something? How is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to go quickly back to what you were saying about other senses too, because I think we are all different kinds of learners, and there's different ways we absorb information or relate to the world as kind of a primary sense, and to trust that, right? If you are an auditory learner, then maybe your risk has to be listening to new music. So there are ways to kind of plug in all these things. So I love that you brought that up. For me, I water my plants every Sunday, right? So if I know by Sunday that I actually haven't done anything, I'm like, oh, like I have to like find a way to like bring that in. So for me, it's a pretty open schedule because I do it enough that I know I'll do it. Saturday is the only morning that I don't have my son at all until 5. He's at his dad's. So Saturday is usually my day for kind of the internal risk because I'm part of Danco's Modern Mastery community, and there's a lot of people sharing all these great ideas, right, that they use as a creator. And I'm like, oh, like I've never heard of that, you know? So I'll watch something, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of take it in, but then I journal about it. I
Mm,
kind of figure out, well, what does spiral dynamics have to do with my coaching? And then I'll do research. I'll use AI tools to do research. Then
mm,
I write about it again. So Saturday is my day for the internal risk taking and exploration. But I think like if you can find a day where you know you have more time, right? Like maybe it's some people it's Friday night, maybe it's the day you go to the gym in the morning, to say, well, I haven't done it yet, so I need to do it. Just to be accountable to yourself, to inform your internal witness. I made this promise, I'm going to keep it. Even if it's something as small as going to like a new place to get tea, trying a new kind of tea. Because what happens is if we say we're going to do it and we don't do it, we've told the internal witness, we've told our subconscious, that's how it goes, right? Like Soo Young, she can make these promises to herself, but she's only going to keep it if it's only for someone else. And that informs all the other decisions I make because if you think about it, the subconscious, unconscious, it's 90% of your decision making process. So if you can look at it as keep the promises to yourself, even if it's really little, because it all informs this inner avatar of how you
mm,
navigate. So I do 30 seconds minimum of cold showers every day.
mm,
So it's so funny. Some days when it's really cold, I'll take a hot shower, then I'll do 30 seconds of cold. But if it's really cold outside, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to I'll do my 10. I'm like counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. And then I actually get out of the shower and I'm like, no, I have to go back in because what I just did in that moment, I need to show myself, my inner avatar, that I'm going to keep my promises. And if we can't keep promises with the small things, it's really hard to do the big things.
mm,
But the reverse is true. If we can keep the promises with the little things, it makes it so much easier to do the big things
mm,
for the risk taking, for following your hunch, you know.
mm.
So it's all about keeping the promises to yourself. They're so important.
And I love it. At the end, that's where you start to feel that you are taking control of your life, and
Yes.
before that, you are feeling like, okay, I don't have control because all the decisions are something that I can keep. So
Yeah.
that is really powerful. What you are saying is it's a way to start to get control of your life again.
Yeah.
Uh, the other thing that comes to my mind with what we are talking is it's incredible, but according to some studies, like between 90 and 95% of the things that we are thinking today are the things that we thought yesterday. And we keep thinking about the same things every single day. And the challenge that you are bringing today is even when you change 1%, you can have a big shift just
Yeah.
because that little change that you start to do, like, okay, sounds interesting what Alejandro and Sujon are saying today. Let's start to think about like something that I can change so my life can start to change. If I keep doing the same things, how things can change.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because it's, you know, Dan Coe is like one of my favorite creators. His last name is Koe. He talks about the anti vision, right? So sometimes when we are like trying to motivate ourselves to do something that we know, like we usually know what we have to do, right? but we don't do it. He's like, go to your antivision. And the antivision is you imagining your life 5 years down the line doing exactly what you're doing. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like not many of us are like, oh yeah, like that sounds good. Most of us, we need the antivision to kind of kick us in the butt a little bit.
Mm,
Because sometimes just imagining, oh, these great lofty goals and possibilities, they feel so far from where we're at emotionally or
mm,
where we're at mentally or sometimes even physically, right? So do the opposite. Like let yourself imagine doing the same things every day for the next 5 years and let that kind of give you a little boost out of your comfort zone because you have to leave the comfort zone, right? Otherwise, it's like you said, it's the very same thing. So we're not always motivated by the positive because, like I said, the brain is hardwired to solve problems. That's why it creates problems when there's none if there's not a real problem. So you want to take that tool and direct it towards something of meaning for you because that's where you're going to see the change. That's why the dramas are so popular. That's why like you can obsess over your best friend's boyfriend because it's harder to look at your own problems that you have to diffuse, but your brain is like, you got to use this.
mm,
This is part of, the whole chemistry of why I'm here. So use this problem solving for challenges of meaning. And you really will see, a lot of shifts internally, physically in your world.
mm, mm. Awesome. So, what are you doing now with this? How you are applying this in your day to day activities? How people start to what happens when they start to apply all of like these risk taking ideas, this anti-vision? I love it. It's a very good way to see it. So how people connect with this and start to understand like, okay, why they need to be coached and understand all of this in a more powerful way.
So I think we can just go back to the problem solving, right? And, it doesn't mean you need a coach. Of course, a coach really helps facilitate the steps along the way. You probably get results faster. You probably be less harder on yourself. But I think anyone can start with the problem, like the imminent problem you're dealing with right now, the one that keeps you up at night, that one that makes you feel anxious. For me, recently, I'll be really honest, I realized I have these stories around financial abundance that come from my childhood. So, my parents, when we first immigrated to this country, we had very little money, but boy, did we have adventure. Like, we would take road trips, we'd go camping, anything that was like a cheap entertainment for me and my brother. My parents took us on. So, even though I left my country, I lost my language, I connected so much with my family and I
Mm,
really connected with this country, what I knew of it. When they started doing really well financially, there was no presence. There was a presence, like we got a lot of stuff, but their emotional presence was gone. And there was more conflict because they had more stress. There was more them judging me for being weird and wild and the black sheep. So I realized as I was facing this problem of building, like scaling up my business,
mm,
I started having this fear like, what if I'm no longer present for my children?
mm,
What if my life becomes I have all this stuff, but I don't, have connection?
mm,
So, me just looking at that problem from that point of view, recognizing it, allowing myself to like journal from it, as well as do my quantum jumping,
yeah.
I realized I have to keep taking risks. That's the only way I'm going to know. The only way I'm going to know is to go for the high ticket clients. The
Mm,
only way I'm going to know is to say I want to network with this multi-million dollar industry. Or only way I'm going to know is to take more clients that I love. I can't figure it out in my head, Alejandro. I can't be like, well, what if I do this? It might be better. I'm not going to do what my parents do. No. We only know through action. We only know and what the results are from that, right? So it comes back again. I have this problem. I meditate on it. I do kind of the internal, but I still have to keep momentum to take the risks that come to me in these hunches, in my quantum jumping. And I'm feeling a little bit of release, just knowing that I've seen it and I know that I'm going to be taking more risks, not stopping myself, because, oh no, I don't want too much money. No, I want a lot of money doing what I love that has meaning for me. So,
Awesome. And at the end, it's when you keep doing that, you start to understand what you are good at, and suddenly you connect with exactly what was the word that you were saying, that when you have different passions,
polymath, polymath.
polymath.
Yeah.
So suddenly you can realize, and that's something that sometimes you don't know and you don't understand, because I believe that everybody can be a polymath, and it's
Yes.
fine. The problem is that if you don't take the risk to start to explore new things, you're not going to know. You need to start to take some risks and start to decide. In the risk taking, I know that there is, when you are doing that in a business, for example, you start to evaluate the options and try to have mitigation points when you are doing risk taking.
Hmm.
What do you think about it when you are applying this in your life? I know that we are talking about little risks that you apply to start to change everything that is happening. But what happens if a person is already like focused on like, okay, yes, okay, let's take some risks, but I also have to have some mitigation if something happens, and start to create more stress because now I have three or four different ways of mitigate the little risk that I am taking.
Yeah, that's really important because so when we take the risk, right, it's really with kind of the explorer's mindset with a hat on of like, you've got the binoculars, you've got the sun hat. It's really not to say, oh, every risk is going to turn exactly the way you want. So when you take the risk, you actually have to let go of the outcome, which sounds crazy, right? You're already doing something in the unknown, but you have to like not take personally whatever happens. Because what happens is if we're like, if we are so focused on the outcome, then so many risks feel like failure. So let's say that let's break it down to something very simple. I talked to that guy at the gym because I wanted his number and I wanted to go on a date, right? That's me focusing on the outcome that I imagine is best for me. But no, it was actually just so I could practice not being inhibited. I could practice like using my voice even though I'm scared, right?
Mm,
And now we have conversations at the gym all the time. We don't date, he hasn't asked me out, but it doesn't matter because it's the exploration of yourself.
mm,
And it's really important not to get so stuck on the details that you set yourself up for failure.
mm,
So it's kind of like law of attraction. A lot of people are like, well, I wanted to be married by 35 and I want this, this, and this, right? But I don't know if that's the way that really opens us up to our potential. If we say this person has to be it, this job has to be it. I don't know. I feel like it's more, how do we know? Let's open it up to the risk and say there's a feeling that I want or there's a way of being that I want in my job, in my relationships with my children. And the way you start bringing that in is to practice in little ways now.
mm,
So it's even like some of my clients, we struggle with abundance, right? Many of us do. I'll say, well, go out one day a month as if money is not an issue. Just see how that feels to navigate that way, and it's not going to hurt your bank account. It's just going to be one meal that maybe you spend $10, $20 more, but just like soak that in, like let yourself be programmed by how good that feels. I think we can all practice that, right? If you want a loving relationship, well, spend one day a week as if you have that. Like just walk around like yeah, when I get home, my boo's going to be there, you know. So it's that playful exploration without focusing on this has to turn out this way that allows our subconscious to be like, oh, Soo Young, you can trust yourself because no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we still practice.
And that's exactly what happens when you are a child. You are always
Yes.
exploring, you are always like, you are not attached to the outcome, you just want to learn. And that's
Yeah.
why they are learning so fast and they are learning so
Yeah.
big. And I can see it. I have a 3 years old and 5 years old, and even at the 5 years old, he keeps learning, but he has started to stop a little bit the process because now he is like, okay, if I do this, I already know what is going to happen, so I don't do it.
Right.
And the 3 years old is learning like crazy because it's like it doesn't matter. He's going to learn, I don't know, either way. So that's at the end the mindset that you are talking about. Like start to have the mindset of a child that start to explore and don't change your whole life. Start to change little things and start to explore and start to take out the attachment of the outcome. So things start to really happen. Um I know I can be talking another hour, and this is
I know. I love talking with you.
was too quick. But in regards of business, and maybe one little comment that you want to bring, because okay, now you're talking about risk and little things that you can do in your life, in your personal life. We are talking these beliefs can change also everything in your life. If
Yes.
you are challenging some of the beliefs that you have right now, just doing some little changes to explore. uh, what do you recommend when you are in business? And okay, if I do a little risk, maybe I lose a lot of money, or maybe, so how you tackle that?
So I think with business, the first place to start is again, what is the problem? What is the problem that your business has right now? Because I also help businesses and companies rebrand or revamp kind of their presence in the world, both online and with their, you know, in-person customers. If you look at that problem, it's already a problem, right? So it's there. So it's not like you're going to be adding to the problem, but you have to do something about it. You have to test out different ways to resolve that problem. Because again, it's like the anti-vision. If you keep going forward, it will probably just get worse, you know? So, like, there's a company that I'm talking to right now, very established coaching company, but their social media presence is abysmal because they're using a very old world of marketing to sell themselves or create presence online. So by doing that, they know they have a problem. So they're kind of opening up this conversation with me. How would you fix this problem? So you invite people in, you invite consultants, you invite coaches who have a fresh perspective and let them kind of play with your problem and see like what can they do. So if you have a consultant, it's temporary. It's something you can try on. You're not bringing in one person that you have a salary with. So for me, consultants and coaches are really a way to bring fresh light into a problem for a business, and then you can try it on and see what the results are and kind of do a yes or no to move forward.
Awesome. So John was really amazing today, and everybody that was listening, thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah.
Really, at the end, this can be little things, but they can become something really big, that where you can start to ignite everything that is happening in your life. You can talk about your relationship, you can be talking about your work, you can be talking about your hobbies,
Yeah.
anything that you feel that you are not doing enough and you are frustrated about it. Start to take some little risks that can change. So I really enjoy the conversation. So John, thank you for today's session and conversation.
Thank
It's always
you.
a pleasure.
Yes, I'm so glad we met, and I so appreciate this space we co create together. And yeah, for anyone who wants to talk with me more, you can find me through my social media. And yeah, I love this time with you. Thank you so much for it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Soo Young. Thank you, everyone. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you all. See you next time. Bye.
Bye. Take care.